Okay, so here is my second card. Isn't that a little cutie? We need the heart punches for this. Wanted to make it easy and cute. Got my stamp mounted for the inside. Not doing any on the outside. We're going to do these little love owls, love birds. And we're going to color them with blends. So I've got a couple of scraps out. The first one is to stamp our owls. We're going to use Memento Tuxedo Black ink for that. So let's stamp that and let it dry. We'll go ahead and move on to another step. I just realized I actually masked the holly so that it wasn't showing in my first one. But you know what? We're going to leave it as is because this covers it anyways. And let's not make it more complicated than it has to be. I had fully intended on using these bits, and I thought I don't want this kind of peeking out around it, but it is what it is. So I've got these two little pieces of holly that I've cut from Garden Green. This is part of the bundle. I've got a scrap of cherry cobbler. So we'll do the scalloped heart with that. And then I have a piece of plaid and a piece of Garden Green. I have to apologize. I loved the backside of this plaid so much that I do not even have a scrap of it left. So the closest that I could come up with was this cherry cobbler one. And I thought to make it look a little bit more like this, maybe just a little bit, and to bring the Garden Green in there, I would just do some lines. So I've got my Stampin' Right Garden Green marker to get ink on my ruler for one. So I'm just going to draw some lines. Scratch that. We'll use the thicker end. And this will just bring in a little bit of that Garden Green. Not the greatest, but it does bring that Garden Green in. I already had everything cut and I thought, oh no, the closest paper had shaded spruce in it. And I'm like, that doesn't really work. So this isn't perfect, but we work with what we've got, right? I'm actually surprised I have any of this paper left because I really love this one too. That is the double-edged sword of double-sided paper, isn't it? When you love both sides of it. Can be so hard to put it down knowing what you're covering up. Okay, so these are both 5.5 in length, so we'll cover it from end to end, and then just take your scissors or something sharp and just rough up the Garden Green cardstock. And I should mention, all the dimensions will be in the tutorial, but this Garden Green is 1 7/8 by 5.5, and then the plaid is 1.5 by 5.5. Okay, so that gives it just a little bit of texture. And now this should be ready to color. I've already gone ahead and I used the Old World embossing folder. Adhere that to our card base. I've mentioned this before, but if this is the first time you're seeing one of my videos, welcome. But I do not like to use Stampin' Seal or Stampin' Seal Plus on an embossed mat because I fear that it is going to get rid of some of that texture that I've just worked so hard to get. Well, I didn't work hard. The embossing folder did all the work for me, but I don't want to lose any of that texture. Okay, so we're just going to glue that down in the middle. And now one thing I should mention before I go any further is because this is cherry cobbler, both of them, and there's no real red in there, I thought, what am I going to do for my bow? And then I thought, okay, well, let's cut a strip. We'll take our dark cherry cobbler Stampin' Blend and color it. Now, if you're not concerned with these matching exactly, then you can skip this step. But I'm a little particular about stuff like this, as you can tell by my homemade plaid, because I didn't have any Garden Green on there. So typically just doing it on the one side will be enough, but you can go on both sides. So now I've got a little bit of cherry cobbler on my finger. I'm going to set that aside and let it dry while I color in my owls. So I used Smoky Slate Light and Dark. I used the light So Saffron, soft suede, and we don't have garden green, so I actually just used a bit of the Just Jade light. I will start by coloring my owls. So I like to start by going in the corner of those eyes, just adding some shadow, and then just go along with what the Stampin' Up! Artist did and go over all of those little hand-drawn lines. Now this is alcohol ink, so we want to work fairly quickly or in very small areas. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go over the whole thing with my light Smoky Slate. I don't need to worry about the eyes on this one because they're closed. And you can get as close to the edge without going out with your brush tip end, and then come back in with that bullet tip and get in those smaller areas. And then anywhere where we had the dark, I'm just going to go in and blend it a bit more. And you can blend these as much or as little as you want. You can leave a little bit of white on the edges, totally up to you. So now I'm going to go in and do the So Saffron for the eyes. Soft suede for this branch. Oh, I didn't do their little feet. Now you could color these as if there's no leaves on here, but I like that little pop of green in there. And since I stamped it on here this time, let's just go ahead and color this holly, because maybe we won't cover the whole thing. And then if that's the case, let's color the berries. Try not to go out of the line like I did there. We'll color the little claws with dark Smoky Slate, and then their little beaks. And then the one color I didn't mention, combo pack, is the light and dark Pool Party. And I take my brush tip and I create an outline. Doesn't really matter if you go over the Smoky Slate. Just go around the whole thing, and this implies that there's sky around them without having to color the whole thing. But on this one, I chose to take it a step further and blend in the light Pool Party. Now it takes a little bit to work in the light and dark, because I don't want like an obvious seam here, so just keep going over until it's as blended as you want it to be. Go up here because I don't know, at this point I haven't punched out my heart, so I don't know how much I need to do. I don't think that's all going to show, but let's find out. I have to take a little bit off of the bottom of this. Okay, so we're going to leave that holly in there, and now I can see where I have missed my light Pool Party. Guess we didn't need to color those berries after all. So now we can go ahead and adhere this to the scalloped heart. And I have to say, I was so happy that it occurred to me to use these punches, because honestly, I think I've only used these for Valentine's Day projects. But I thought, I know the scale in which Kelly sells her kit classes is huge, and I hesitate to incorporate dies into my designs because I know how much it's going to be for her, how much work. So I was thrilled to be able to find these punches and have them work so cute. And you know what? I thought this one, you don't even have to put a Christmas greeting in there. It could be an anniversary card. It could be for anything, really. It could be I missed you or anything. So let's cover a little bit of that holly without doing the whole thing. You just need a little bit of glue to keep it down. And then our final step on the outside is to attach that ribbon. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold this scrap that I've got, put this in the middle, and press it together, and that will get any wet ink on the paper instead of on my hands. So now I'm just going to tie a fairly large bow, and you can still see the white on the other side. So like I said, if you are particular about that, color it on both sides, because it can be tricky to only see one side of the ribbon. I actually cut way more than this, way more of this than I needed. It's always the scissors I lose. Every single time. So before I adhere this, I'm actually going to take that cherry cobbler blend one more time and cover up these white spots. But like I said, if it doesn't matter to you, just leave it. But Stampin' Up! Has taught me that there's a red for everything, and I just can't mix my reds. Okay, so now a glue dot. And we'll pop that on there. That one tail is maybe a little bit longer than it needs to be, but how stinking cute is that? I'll take a couple of these Trimming the Town embellishments, and I'm just going to put 2 dots on here. I know usually we would do multiples of 3, but I just thought it was so cute since it's 2 little birds. We'll put 2 little dots. You could put 3 and have the dot, dot, dot. So I'm going to leave this one blank. I actually, on the inside of this one, remember I was talking about how I masked the holly and didn't have it on there? I masked it on here as well so that I only had the holly. Let's go for it. So I am going to use Smoky Slate for this one. I do think this one would be a great all occasion card. So if you don't want to put a sentiment on it, I totally get it. So this stamp is all clean. I am going to, there's 2 of them here. I thought about just inking it up with my Stampin' Write marker, but I never get a nice solid image when I do that. So we're going to use Post-it notes. And of course, I just ran out of the small ones. So cover all of that up. I'll just take a little piece from there to cover up that little dot. I can always wipe that one off if I don't want it there. So now, I know this looks way more complicated than it needs to be, but ink that up. Take off all your Post-its because that is a key part of masking, is remembering to take that mask off. And there we go. So now we just have our little piece of holly. And Owl I Want for Christmas is You. Who doesn't love a good pun? I know I do. Okay, so that was my second card design. Stay tuned for my tin design. I hope you love this. I know that it's not quite the same without that gorgeous plaid, but sometimes when you're in a pinch, it just has to do. Okay, so we'll see you soon.